Hey guys, I thought I'd do something a little bit different today. It's Saturday. It's a little bit getting on to the evening. Um, I usually do fiction reviews on this channel. Today I'm going to talk about a nonfiction book, and I'm going to give my unpopular opinion of a book that a lot of people think very highly of. So today I'm going to talk about Joseph Campbell's The Hero with a Thousand Faces. This is a very famous, very popular book. Most people I know love it and think it's genius. It famously inspired George Lucas to write Star Wars, and I love Star Wars. So I was excited to read this. It's about mythology. I'm a huge mythology fan. I love like the Norse myths, the Greek myths, all of it. I think it's great. So I was really excited to read it. I thought it was going to be really right up my alley. It turned out to be very disappointing to me. The first thing is that this book was written a while ago, and it was at the height of kind of the Freudian fad, when everyone thought that Sigmund Freud was the granddaddy of psychology, and he understood how the mind worked. And so there's a lot of Freudian theories in here. There's a lot about the Oedipus complex and all these kind of frustrated sexual ideas that Freud said that we were motivated by and were such a key part of human psychology. I think those ideas have been pretty thoroughly debunked by the modern psychology profession. I've always found them pretty dubious, and the fact that so much of the book is concerned with that really turned me off of it. I really didn't like that at all. He also talks about Carl Jung, the kind of contemporary of Freud who had a very different school of analysis. And I actually do love Jung. I think Jung is a brilliant psychologist, and he talks about things like the collective unconscious and archetypes and things that kind of exist deep within the human brain that we all have in common. And that, I think, is a really interesting idea, and I think there's something to it. And I figured that would inform Joseph Campbell's thesis in this book, but he really kind of glosses over it and spends much more time on Freud than he does on Jung, which I thought was a shame, because I like Jung and don't like Freud. Joseph Campbell's basically, if I understand his thesis correctly, he doesn't write very clearly, but if I understand him correctly, he is arguing that all of these timeless myths that we have shared across cultures from as far back as we have history are all kind of rooted in the same basic archetypes, the same ideas, and you can find the stages of those archetypes throughout. If you trace the myths, you can find these same ideas throughout all of them. And he calls it the monomyth, basically arguing that all myths are basically one myth, just chopped up in different pieces and put together different ways. That's a compelling idea, and it's an interesting idea, but I don't think he demonstrates his point very well, because he doesn't ever take you through an entire story and show you all the different elements that he talks about. He talks about things like, the call to adventure, which is where the hero gets the idea or gets the inspiration to go on his journey, and say, oh, that's an important element of it. Or there's the belly of the whale, where the hero is trapped in some situation and has to get his way out, and there's all these kind of archetypical situations he talks about, and he'll point out, here in the Odyssey, you have the call to adventure because Odysseus has to go back to his home, or here in Little Red Riding Hood, you have the belly of the whale where she's eaten by the wolf and has to get out, or trapped by the wolf and has to get out. But he never traces all those elements through one story. He picks and chooses. He's like, here's one element from one story, here's another element from another story. And I think that weakens his point a lot because, you can find tropes that appear in different stories, but claiming that all stories are really one story, that there's this monomyth, you have to do more than just point out tropes in different stories. You have to show that all the tropes are present in all the stories. And he doesn't do that, and I don't think that they are. If you want to say that things like the call to adventure are present in all stories, you have to weaken it so much. Like, look at Little Red Riding Hood, what's the call to adventure there? Things just happen to her. There's no call to adventure. And I think if you want to, you could argue, well, just the beginning of the story, the fact that it's starting and something is happening is the call to adventure. But if you weaken it to that extent, you're really just creating a tautology. You're just saying, in all stories, something happens. And essentially what you're saying is all stories are stories, which is not saying anything. It's true, but it doesn't say anything. You're just saying all stories are stories. There's this idea in linguistics about the universal grammar. There was a theory, it's become weaker over the years, that all languages have these features in common, And as we discovered more languages, we discovered languages that don't conform to those features and have different things. And the theory has now become so weak that it basically just says all languages are about communication, which just says all languages are languages. Again, it's true, it doesn't say anything. I feel like that's the trap that Campbell has fallen into in this book. So I really felt kind of let down by a book that I was really excited to read and thought would be a lot of fun. It's so full of jargon and psychological mumbo jumbo, and I don't feel like it makes its point very well. I was really hoping for something much more uplifting and fun about mythology. There's another book an older book by an anthropologist called James Fraser called The Golden Bough. It's a huge, comprehensive study of comparative religion and mythology and beliefs in magic that I'm a big fan of. It was written in the 19th century. It's very Victorian, and so it's out of date, and a lot of it is wrong. But in terms of kind of celebrating the different beliefs of people, it's a lot more interesting and fun than I thought this book was, because this book was not really so much about, the greatness of these stories and how much fun they are. It was really more about trying to prove this thesis, which using psychology, which I didn't think he did a very good job of. I know everyone else likes this book. I know this is going to be an unpopular opinion. You're welcome to correct me and correct my understanding of what Campbell was trying to get at in the comments. I would welcome that. Maybe his other books are good. I know like The Power of Myth is very popular. I haven't read anything else by him because I was so disappointed in this book. So if you want to recommend other Joseph Campbell books that you think I would like better, I'd be happy to check those out. Because as I said, I do love mythology, and I was very interested in Campbell when I first found out about him. So maybe like the later stuff after he got out of his Freud phase might be better. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. I've been Logan Albright. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll catch you next time.